It's almost like to ask for more is to be greedy, it's to be selfish.
Yeah.
And so we can sometimes kind of limit our blessings. But the lesson my mom taught me is that there is always room for more blessings. That if you believe in a God, he's not punitive. He's not a limited one. The idea that there's enough to go around, and so if you've been blessed, you can be blessed more.
And that was actress Lupita Nyong'o, just one of our guests on this week's conversation from Studio 5. She's joining us along with filmmaker Chris Sanders to talk about the new film Wild Robot. We begin with Lupita. She plays the role of Roz 7134, a robot stranded in the woods with animals and a baby goose. So, did you spend a lot of time listening to Siri and Alexa at home to get us started?
Yes, bingo. I did. I listened to a lot of automated voice sounds, and Siri and Alexa were some of them, as well as the voices on TikTok and Instagram. And what I felt was the same, or they're all very optimistic voices, very bright, and that definitely inspired my voice.
So, why does Lupita as Roz 7134, a robot, make us cry?
Well, I think Rosm 7134 makes us cry because, number one, she doesn't have facial expressions. What she has is a mission to be of help. And we get that from the very start of the movie. And she goes about trying to do that. But in order to do that, she's a fish out of water. She's an alien in this environment, and she has to adapt to it in order to actually finally achieve her goal. And I think we cry because we recognize how we recognize that, like, the importance of adaptation in order to survive, but also the importance of staying true to yourself. And I think that's something that we sometimes struggle with, you know. Sometimes adaptation seems like it's going to annihilate us. But in this story, we see that it's not the case.
I feel like we hear that journey in her voice from beginning to end, because the Roz we see at the beginning and hear at the beginning is not the Roz we see and hear.
Yeah, and that was very deliberate. One of the first conversations I had with Chris, I asked him, why me? Why me for Roz? And he said he liked the warmth in my voice and what he felt it could express. So we always knew that Roz would end up in her fullest, most individualized state, sounding more like me. And then we kind of like reverse engineered it. So that first Siri, like Alexa, programmed optimism sound is her factory settings. And then we worked to very, very slowly and subtly color her in with her humanity as she adapts to the island.
I've heard you say that you live life in gratitude and allowing for bounty.
Yes.
What does that mean? Explain, if you don't mind.
You know, I feel, first of all, it's a lesson I learned from my mother. She was inspired by the prayer of Jabez, and that talks about increasing your bounty. I think that sometimes we are so poised for struggle and strife that we sometimes do not allow for the blessings. It's almost like to ask for more is to be greedy, it's to be selfish. And so we can sometimes kind of limit our blessings. But the lesson my mom taught me is that there is always room for more blessings. That if you believe in a God, he is not punitive. He's not a limited one. The idea that there's enough to go around, and so if you've been blessed, you can be blessed more. It's also about, like, you know, being content where you are, but also allowing for more, because there will always be struggle, and when that happens, it is your bounty that will see you through.
This release is on the heels of quite a different release. You're taking a hard turn from A Quiet Place
Yes, I know,
to this.
Yeah.
But I feel like you've been very intentional about doing projects to reach out to children and younger people, from your book to doll to you name it. Why? What's driving that intention to reach, especially young girls? I have a daughter, so especially young girls. What's driving that?
Well, I like children. I like them. I have always loved children. Like when I was little, I was the child that wanted to babysit my little sister and not go out and play. I've always loved children. So I've always gravitated to them. I always wanted children of my own. So I think there's that. But then I also think that the work of being an adult is healing your childhood wounds. So I think that in working at things that are for children, I heal my childhood wounds.
Last thing, Mind Your Own, what's that?
Yes, that is my podcast. It is it's a storytelling show from the African perspective. So in each episode, I share a story from my own life, and then I tee it off to an African somewhere in the world who shares a story of a similar theme from their life. And for me, it was about just expanding our idea of what it means to be African and what global African identity looks like. And it was a way to cure my homesickness, to be honest.
I love it. Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Thank you.
A conversation about Wild Robot continues now with the film's writer and director, Chris Sanders. So finish this statement for me. A robot is dropped in the middle of the wilderness and
its programming takes over, and it starts to do what it was programmed to do. But it doesn't yet know that it's not where it's supposed to be. And because of that, it's going to end up changing everything about this island and everything about herself.
Wow. I've heard you say this is one of the easiest films to make, but one of the most emotional. Why?
There was something about this that I cannot explain, except to say that everybody on this production exceeded what they needed to do. There was just something about this project that was different. Everyone like fell in love with it, really. There was a moment where I was looking at an effect shot, and it exceeded what it needed to do. And I turned to my producer and said, "Why does this film look this good?"
Wow.
And he said, "People love this film." And everything from the voice performances to the engineering that allowed us to get this look, which is groundbreaking, to the music. Everyone went way beyond on this thing, and and nobody wanted it to end. That's the thing, is that, these are huge productions that take many years, about 3 or 4 years, but that's a lot. And you usually always, by the end, you're like, I'm ready for this to be done. Let's finish it. But not this one. Nobody wanted it to end.
Take me back to the beginning. So you see a description at DreamWorks for this, the book.
Yeah.
What's that process and length like from that moment to us sitting here now?
It's about 3 or 4 years, I think, start to finish, which is about right. I always, for me, Beauty and the Beast was the model. It was about 4 years, start to finish. It's not too much time, and it's not too little time. It's the perfect amount of time. And I first saw it when I dropped into DreamWorks looking for my next gig, and I was looking at what they had in development. And they literally laid a bunch of stuff out on a table, and one of the things was the Wild Robot book. And the moment they described it, there was no question. I was like, this is the one I'm interested in. When I read it, it confirmed that this was magic, and I wanted to take it on.
Lupita has said that when she was approached to do this, she asked, why me? So I'm going to ask you that question. Why Lupita to be Roz?
Our casting director, based on the character, said Lupita is the choice. Initially, it was the sound of her voice. She's a great actor, and her voice is beautiful. What I wasn't aware of was how incredibly inventive and how much she devoted herself to this character. It's a complex character, and she immediately started to talk about, well, why does Roz do what she does? She questioned a lot of things because she needed to understand it, and we together crafted Roz. She's a complex being, and we worked very hard, but Lupita took the lead in inventing this character and deciphering the engineering inside of Roz's head and her thinking patterns.
This is already being called the best animated film of the year. Are you paying attention to that? How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel really good. I think because I know how much went into this, and how much love went into this, and how different it looks. And I'm going to start to cry. People worked so hard on this and did so much. More than they needed to do. It was unique.
In terms of the look, there's some hand painting going on in this. How does that work?
100%. I'm glad that these images are next to us because usually we wrap geometry with surfaces, with patterns and surfaces to try to make things look organic. There's no substitute for a human hand. You can't top a painting. And when CG came along, we got so many wonderful things, but we lost touch with what I would say an analog warmth that only comes from a hand-painted thing. Think Bambi and Tyrus Wong's art, and My Neighbor Totoro, and the environments that were hand-drawn in that. And we've been fighting so hard to get back to that kind of analog warmth. And we got to the point with this film that we didn't need geometry any longer. They could paint dimensionally. And I went to a demonstration where a painter sat at a station, and I watched an environment, a plant, get painted, and they turned it and painted and turned it and painted it. So every tree, every surface is made by hand. And you'll see that in this, see there's little blobs of color that just float in the air. There's no geometry under it. It's just paint. It's impressionistic. Yeah. And the effect that comes from that, there's no substitute for that. It's the weird thing is it's more real. It's like when you go to a gallery, I do, and I get really close to paintings and it just becomes abstract. And the more you back away from it, you back away from a Monet, it goes from being these little blobs of color that are nonsense to suddenly it's a garden. And that's what's going on with this film. Even the characters have hand-painted surfaces. So the entire thing quite literally is a moving painting. And it needed to look that way for this particular story.
What happened to Chris Sanders to make him fall in love with animation?
I don't know. I fell down the stairs when I was little. No, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with people. I've always loved animation. I loved drawing from when I was really, really little. It was my first love.
Did you always know you could make a career of it?
No. My grandmother changed the course of my life. I was my last year of high school, and I was supposed to apply to something, and I didn't know. I thought maybe I could be a veterinarian because I like animals, but I didn't know if I was smart enough to do that. She was reading the newspaper, the Denver Post, and she read an article about how there was a school in California called CalArts that was training kids to be animators because animators were retiring and Disney was running out of them. And that was the one and only place I applied to go to school. And I got accepted, and that changed the course of my life. But I owe it all to my grandmother reading the Denver Post one night.
When did you know you were successful?
I think when I got my first directing gig, I was like, I must be doing this right because they're trusting me with something.
The Wild Robot is available right now in theaters. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's edition of Conversations from Studio 5 and making us your weekly destination for uplifting interviews with a strong focus on faith. For more information on the show, be sure to check out our Facebook page, and you can find us on Instagram simply by searching Studio 5. Hope you'll join us again right here next week on the podcast.